Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to 22 Panels, where our guests tonight are a couple of my favorite creators. Alex Campi is returning to the podcast, and today she's coming with Erica Henderson. And their new book, Parasocial, is very high on my top books of the year. I just finished a second reread. Uh, and I'm just going to start with wow. Um, Alex, I always love your writing. Erica, I always love your art. But when you get together, you do really, really interesting things. Um, I also reread Dracula Motherfucker this week, and particularly, and I appreciate the fact that in both of your books, you do kind of short essays at the end about how you approach the book because my mind puts stuff together. So one of my questions for Erica right off the bat is with Dracula, you talked about doing your colors first. Well, doing the colors over the pencils and then tightening up the art to help get the feel for is that something you continued here? You seem
Yeah,
to enjoy the experience.
there was a couple of things that I started doing in Dracula that I've just kept doing as long as I can, and that was um penciling everything as a spread so you can see both pages at the same time. Because that's how you experience reading a comic. You would
Yep.
see both at the same time. And putting color down immediately, partly because a lot of times when you're leaving color to the end, that's exactly what happens. Like you leave it to the end, you're just like, well, I don't have any brain cells left. I'm just putting it, I guess, grass is green, so it's going to be green. And like all the creative ideas you had early on when you're making decisions and being creative are just gone.
Right.
But it's also, I think you can use color along with the other elements on the page to move stuff through. And so if you have an object, you can make it a certain color and move it through the panel so that it's not just bouncing all over the place. It's not like there's a spot of bright red that's like, you know, moving your eye in weird places. You can center it so that the eye is now being dragged along by this little bit of color.
And then
I
I've
mean,
lettered it by the time Erica's going back for final color. And then sometimes we do things like she either draws over my sound effects because she has a way she wants to put them more organically into the page, or she'll be like, hey, let me actually freehand that sound effect because there's one particular page where I put something in. I like quite stark stuff. And Erica was like, that's actually too stark for the vibe. I'm going to do something different. Because originally it was going to be a silent page, and I was like, actually, it needs a sound effect. And then Erica said, actually, it needs a different sound effect, or a different style of sound effect. And so the book keeps getting passed back and forth. And I've never asked Erica like whether it's any help to be able to see the letters on the page and know what I'm planning to do, because she'll leave me a blank space and I'll just stick a giant fuck in there. It's a much better idea as far as I'm concerned to put the big letters on top of the white space rather than on top of the art, because
I
just
imagine
makes
most artists would appreciate that.
um but also it means that I'm doing things that um you know she should probably have a heads up about. And again, that's why her color roughs are really useful, because I'm like, oh well, she's using a spot red through this, then I will use a white sound effect, or I will, like that. I kind of then work out my lettering palette to what she's thinking of doing with color. So we're
Okay.
constantly reinforcing each other.
Okay. And it goes, you said just there that you send back and forth. So is something that happens? I know a lot of creators when they work together, it's chunks or the whole book. I wrote it, I sent it to you, you do your thing, you send it back to me. It sounds like you're working more immediately than
I
that.
mean,
Are you
we have a
Erica gets the whole
Dropbox.
script. Yeah, we have
okay?
Dropbox. Like we just have this project folder. I write for Dracula Motherfucker and Parasocial. I wrote the script, sent it to Erica, went from there. The third book that we're very slowly that sooner or later I might actually get my shit together on, though probably more later than sooner. Erica's much earlier involved in the process. She's already had I wrote like a 10-page vomit draft of the opening scenes and then some vague stuff and sent it to her, and she sent some vague stuff back, and we're kind of spiraling in on what it means. And I decided to walk away from it for a while because both of these books, the books I do with Erica, are very special to me because they're taking a very well-known genre or a very well-known horror story or trope and keeping the horror implicit in that original trope. So respecting why it was scary, possibly in the sense of Dracula, making it scarier, but then also making it fundamentally about something else. Like Parasocial, you could say, is misery for the social media age, but Parasocial is really about something else. At
least a couple other things.
Yeah. And so I have to figure out what the something else is and how it and have an ending that, I mean, Parasocial has more endings than Johnny To's election, but like I have to find a way to end it that makes me happy. And I'm very, very hard to please. So there's a lot of fooling around with what the story really means, what I'm really writing about, why I'm, while still making a good, stalker thriller, psychosexual thriller, while still making a good Dracula story. Because people will come to, if you write a book called Dracula, motherfucker, you got to deliver a really good Dracula. But also it can be about something else.
Yeah. I mean, I would have been okay if it was just about something else, but I've never been Dracula. I can't root for the two. But that's just, I'm the weirdo.
Well, I think there's also, there's a point to which, like, he's such a known character at this point. The story is so well known that if you're not doing something else, like, what are you doing?
Right.
We've done the story.
Yeah. And a lot of comics people don't do the something else. They have like minor reimaginings. They're like, it's Dracula in a cyberpunk universe. And it's like, really?
Yeah.
Darling, bestie, please, my crops are dying. So yeah, I mean, people think but the difference between taking an old trope and doing something high concept with it, which is what comics' bread and butter is, and I think what we're doing, which is taking an old trope and getting really weird with it, taking it, sort of putting more of a literary theme into it, and having a non-standard, like having a story that will not work well as a film.
That's what I love about comics. And I love the way you both utilize that. You both understand that comics are in that space between the pure abstract of prose and the more reality of film, and you take advantage of the medium to blur line. I mean, I loved in Parasocial, and Erica, you wrote about it at the end, the way not just the colors change scene to scene, but as things started to unravel, things, your lines got rougher. They weren't as clean as they were at the convention. I guess my question is, how much of that comes naturally as you're doing it, and how much of that is like very, very deliberate? And I know Alex writes really specific scripts, so the dual question here is Alex, how much of that did you feed to Erica, and how much of that did you see and go, oh wow? Because I certainly went, oh wow. I just don't know how to approach apportion the oh wow.
I mean, the story is so much about perception that, like, since I'm kind of in charge of what you see,
right?
I had to, like, mess with the reader's perception as well. Like, that seemed like it was pretty important. I don't know that it was specifically in the script, but yeah, like, but there's also just a level too where it's easy to get more frenetic as what you're working on becomes more frenetic. Like a convention scene, it's just sort of natural that it feels everything's tight. There's just a lot of your focus is more on like all the little objects. It's more of a scene about details and faces. And later on, it's natural that it should get looser and more crazy. But yeah, it was also on purpose.
A lot of what we do, like there's a very fine balance between being extremely deliberate and kind of the jazz-based improv. Like I do compare a lot what we do a lot to jazz, because there's a real discipline in being able to be free, if you know what I mean. It takes a lot of hard work to make something look easy. Yeah. And so part of what we're doing is very thoughtful, deliberate actions. And then part of what we're doing is just reacting in the moment, whether I'm reacting in the moment to what Eric has done on the page to create a lettering effect that's very non-standard, or whether, you know, she's reacting in the moment to just a vibe she feels, or I'm doing that with the story. Because that sort of trusting yourself to just go for it is what took the story to the places it did. You've got to kind of listen to your own internal instincts and trust them, and that's really what took the story to some very interesting places.
Yeah, there's just stuff like I'm trying to stay vague here. People haven't read it. Like the scene
Are we spoiling
in the
it or
living
not?
room.
That's entirely up to you guys, or if you want, we can. I think it was John Lees that came up with the great idea when we were talking about one of his books. We're about halfway through the episode. We went, if you haven't read it, stop, pause, go read it. Spoilers after this. And then he gave a countdown. So it's up to you. We can spoil, we can not spoil. We can choose a point to start spoiling.
Let's choose a point to start spoiling. So I think we'll have more fun and have a more substantive discussion if you're able to ask us about some of the stuff that I know you want to ask us.
True.
Absolutely.
Okay, but what I was saying is that there were things like the scene in the living room, which is about, you know, the 3/4 point. You know, we're getting into the breakdown where that is the art is loosening there, but that was natural and easier for me because it's a lot of like heightened emotion and yelling, and I can get into that. Whereas the very, very end, when things are really visually breaking down, I think I had to draw that just like 2-3 pages, like 3 times, because it was like, okay, how do I represent this without it looking corny, basically? Because we are literally having it kind of fall apart.
Right.
And there was like one panel, I think, of the boy's foot coming through the door where I was just like, okay, all right, I'm going to just work on this one. We'll just see if we can finally get it to a point that makes sense.
As you talk about that, and I mentioned to you, well, we were off air, that Tyler and I have recently reread a lot of Squirrel Girl. I would say that the bulk of your sequential art is split between working with Alex and working with Ryan North, and it tends to be very different. Kind of talk about how you enjoy going back and forth between, I mean, because they're both really, I mean, it would be easy to say that Squirrel Girl is not as realistic or whatever, but Squirrel Girl has some really also phenomenal storytelling and groundbreaking superhero type storytelling going on. So I think that it's necessarily an easier thing to do. It's just very different. I mean, for that matter, I forget the graphic novel you did with Ryan at the beginning of the year. It was also
Danger and Other Unknown Risks. Well, that one was easier because I wrote half of it, so it was a lot more that I could, figure out, or we went over a lot. With Squirrel Girl, I feel like the main difference is that Alex is much more visually minded, and so it's very clear looking at one of Alex's scripts that like Alex is seeing something when she's writing it, and you can get a sense of that as well. Like and you get this mean, Alex comes from film, but also you can get this with writers who also draw. Like I've worked with Chip Zdarsky and Kyle Starks, and both of them have the same thing
Right.
where like they clearly know what the page looks like when you're looking at one of their scripts.
Kyle loves you, by the way.
I love
Adores
Kyle.
your work.
You love Kyle.
loves
Kyle's
your work.
amazing.
Yeah. No, Kyle and I, like one of our first conventions we did next to each other. We're just instant best friends.
I just remember the first time I was talking to Kyle before I'd even had him on the show. When I was asking him to come on the show, he's like, "You got to ask Erica Henderson too. She's amazing. She's busy all the time, but you got to have her." I'm like, okay, Kyle.
But with going back to the question, but with Squirrel Girl, I mean Ryan isn't as visually minded. He knows it. It's fine for me to say. And he's very talkative. And so there was a lot more where I had to go in and break up these very talky scenes to make things flow, to make all that stuff work a little more. I feel like that's the main difference, is that
He's probably better at comedy than me. I'd say he is as well.
Yeah, but I haven't, that's like not come up as much for us, where I haven't had to like
There were comedic
it's hard for me to
moments.
compare when it
With our books.
sure
Yeah.
sure, but I just mean like it's hard for me to talk about that as we have not done as much comedy together.
Tyler
yeah,
has
like-
joined the conversation.
Hey guys.
Hello.
And Tyler,
Yes,
we're in
and
our
has joined the
non-spoiler
chat.
part of the episode. We've decided that we'll choose a point at some point where it'll go spoiler.
Okay.
Um,
That sounds good. How's everybody doing?
Great.
Good.
How was your drama practice?
It was good. I have to get in all the practice I can get because I got a miss rehearsal Thursday night because I'm heading to Chicago to Tad's area.
that's right. You're coming down to see your son.
Yeah. Yep.
I
So-
have stuff for you, so we have to try to get together.
Okay. I'll be staying in Wheeling.
Okay,
I got
I know where that is.
a B&B Airbnb there.
Okay.
Anyway, let's get back to what were you guys talking about?
Well, Erica had just told us kind of the difference between working with Alex versus Ryan North.
Mhm.
And I was about to ask Alex, you wrote some in the book, but tell me about how Luke, Indiana went from a crazy bar idea to the social media age of misery. I mean, where
Well,
did it go
I
from
mean, we all carry as writers and artists all carry around characters in their back pocket and a few names that they're always going to use at some point, and then at a certain point the book presents itself, and you're like, okay, right, I'm gonna finally use that name I saw carved on the seat of the MTA in Boston, Mickey Big Pockets. He's going to be a gangster in this. Like, so you kind of just have this little list. And Luke, Indiana started off the current editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics is most famous for a lot of people for having posed and written in yellowface, posed as a Japanese man after he was sent to after Marvel, when he was an editor at Marvel. Marvel decided it wanted to get in on the manga revolution, so it wanted to hire a Japanese writer to write manga stories about its characters. So they sent your man, who's going to remain nameless because I'm a lady, off to Japan. He spoke Japanese, bit of a weeb, went to Comic-Con, couldn't find a single person in all of Japan who wanted to write for Marvel Comics. Like, none, zero.
Wow.
And so he invents a character, he invents a persona so he can write those comics, which is in contravention of his editorial contracts. He's not allowed to write for the company while he's editing for the company.
Wow.
And all of this aside, all of the wrongness of a white guy posing in yellowface to write comics illegally under his contract, and putting aside the fact that the stories were so hackneyed, they made Sax Rohmer look like Edward Said. Do have a soft spot for the Sax Rohmer stories, gotta say. Like dreadfully Orientalist as they are. Those sort of early sort of crime noir adventure stories are always kind of fun. Anyway, what I actually most object to out of all of this is the fact that he's supposedly like this Japanese expert, and the name he picked was the most fucking 101 weeb name I have ever heard. It was Akira Yoshida. Akira, after the one Japanese comic that like even the most like anti, like even someone who's never ever read any manga will have heard of. The bike slide.
Also, wasn't it Marvel that like colorized it and brought it over? Or was that DC?
I think it was Marvel. I think it was
that. Yeah, okay. It was Marvel. Yeah. Okay.
And Yoshida, after Marvel's first Japanese, the surname of Marvel's first Japanese superhero, like he couldn't actually even think up an actual like plausible Japanese name. So, and at this point, Marvel was still not really hiring women writers except to have like a C-list, like a miniseries of a C-list female character that wouldn't sell that very well, and then they could go, "Oh, we tried diversity. Sorry, next time we're going to hire a white guy."
Right.
So I thought, like, well, if this is cool, if we're all like allowed to just put on another persona, I'm going to become a 25-year-old like edgy white dude with an MFA, or like in the middle of an MFA, and write an image miniseries or like an indie miniseries where there's a damsel in distress who's fridged in the first issue to provide the heroes like motivation to go on, and it has a down ending at the end of issue 5 because like I want to make it real, man. I want to make a Yaz record, and then see if I can like write Iron Man afterwards, because there's a lot of like white guys who write a middling to adequate indie miniseries and then get picked up to do characters even still that female creators and or creators of color will never get to, or will have to take a much longer get. I mean, like Ta-Nehisi Coates had to get like a fucking Pulitzer before they let him write comics, and even then I think he had to take a test. They made
and they started him with Black Panther.
Yeah.
To be fair, he might have wanted it.
Yeah, but
yeah.
I know.
So I thought, well, if we're going to be using like really real stereotype names, what would the American version of Akira Yoshida be? And I decided to be Luke Skywalker, and Indiana Jones. There you go.
That's awesome.
And then the character just kind of lived rent free in my head for a while, and every so often I'd be like, yeah, I should just go do this. And then I thought, I can't really be bothered, and actually I don't want to write for Marvel or DC anyway. So like,
lived rent free in your head. Then, wouldn't it be great if you could charge rent to the characters in your head? You'd probably be a lot more self-sufficient.
Well, I sort of do charge rent to them because eventually they become books and then they pay me.
Oh, okay.
That's true.
But that involves a lot of work on your part. I just thought like the if you could somehow make them pay rent for sitting around in your head, you'd have more time to write.
Or they'd leave and then I'd have more space in my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I needed a character for this, and I thought, and the character is a stage name, so I thought, well, this is a good stage name. Like if I had a difficult surname or something like that, Luke Indiana's, quite cool. Yeah. Johnny Utah, like it's worked before. Hannah Montana, Alexis Texas.
Yeah. So where did the idea to do? I mean,
well. It came out of the fact that I kind of sit on this weird fence where I have some close friends who are really like significantly into a bunch of fandoms across different fandoms. It's not one fandom. And I'm on their group chats and their Facebook Messenger groups where I've seen some shit, and it's like, and I had friends sit down with me, like fandom friends I haven't known before, and like they're in town and like you meet up with them for a coffee because they're in your city, and them telling stories about their friend who had to be dissuaded from actively stalking someone. I did this like charity treasure hunt thing one summer. I think it was the first summer of the pandemic, and it was such a weird experience. It was one of these like celebrity charity run things. And people were like getting tattoos on the say-so for like the charity hunt. Like it was just weird and like made me uncomfortable. And the people I was doing it with seemed to love it. And I'm like, well, maybe I'm broken. And also I belonged to a gym in New York City with a bunch of where like there were a bunch of celebrities who also went to the gym. This is not an unusual thing in New York City. Like you live in Manhattan, you go to a fancy gym, you're gonna run into famous people, and like you just ignore them. Glare at them if they're taking a little too long on the weight bench, all the usual gym stuff. Or if they're like bogarting too many weights, like, man, you don't need all this. And so I would listen to them talk about like doing conventions, and the phrase fan butter, which appears in like there are several things which appear in Parasocial, which are direct quotes from either fairly significant actors who have done conventions or fans.
I hadn't heard ththose exact ones because obviously we're not in the same places at the same time all the time, but like I've heard versions of everything that's in there, being around the people I'm around and going to conventions.
And I had a lot of feelings about conventions anyway. I photo ops, I just always thought it was this odd thing, especially as someone I don't really like to be hugged by strangers. So the whole idea of like strangers being able to come up and kind of like just be all over you for 15 seconds and then get a photo was like, and people like, actors make lots of money out of it. So, if you can do that, bless you. An actor I'm shooting something with now was telling me it was did the convention circuit very briefly because he was in a Star War, and generally had a lovely time, but he only did it very briefly and be like, yeah, that's it, I'm done. But the people who do the circuit regularly, a circuit founded by Stephen Amell of all people, he was the one who corporatized it. Now he's in a tiny little booth and no one goes to see him, like How the Mighty Are Fallen and so forth. So it was kind of having all of this information on both sides and knowing how fucked both sides of the situation were, and how this sort of the tendency among a small minority of actors towards a sort of narcissism and an encouragement of the parasocial relationship for both affection and finance. And I really want to dig into that because most of the stories concerning parasocial relationships, of which Misery is obviously the first one in everyone's mind, but there's also Big Fan. There was Rogues Gallery, which was kind of but and in all of them, the creative, the writer, the actor, the whatever is portrayed as this kind of innocent figure just trying to create their stuff, and they're not like we're not innocent. And some of us are less innocent than others, but it became a much more interesting story for me if the actor was not innocent, but we also understood why he was doing what he was doing, even though it's generally like Luke Indiana is not a good person in any way.
I like how you.
So, yeah, it was a confusing situation, and I'm like, I need to write about this because all of this is nuts.
I like how you made both main characters understandable, even in you're sitting there going, no, you shouldn't be like that, but you can see how you should relate
to both of them. And part of one of the things I really enjoy that sometimes puts people off my books, but that's okay. My book, not everyone's going to like my books, is making you shift your allegiance back and forth between characters throughout a book.
So how, maybe I missed the beginning conversations. How is it working with Image? I mean, was the Dracula book you guys' first work with Image?
Our first,
together.
Our first work together. I'd done previous work with Image, and Erica had done. You'd done Assassination Nation by then, which is Skybound, but similar.
Yeah, it was Skybound, so it is different because they do have like actual editorial and stuff.
They do.
Yeah, it's
Image has the best copy editor in the business. Like,
I just mean in terms of like it works more like a traditional publisher.
Yeah.
Whereas Image, you give them the thing.
Yeah.
So there's complete freedom with Image.
Yeah. And one of the reasons I like Image is we can do these gorgeous hardbacks for a price point which is still less than like a Marvel 4-issue trade paperback.
Right.
Yeah. I was amazed. Like, I always feel like it sounds like I'm trying to sell the book, but I'm actually genuinely amazed at how good it looks. Like the printing is so nice.
I still haven't picked up my physical copy. I got the digital like the second it was released, but I haven't put my hands on the hardcover yet. Soon.
The art, it's really beautiful. It's great.
I
Yeah.
know it is.
I mean, I
It
figure
was
like
one of the
most
I-
people
I-
live in small spaces and don't have room for a lot of stuff, so they buy on digital, which is great. Or they get it from the library, also great.
right.
But we want the physical edition to be something nice enough that if you really enjoy the digital edition and you see the physical edition, you're like, this is actually really something really special, and it doesn't cost a premium
Right.
price. So it encourages you to buy. It also stands up better on the shelf. Like it racks
Yeah.
beautifully spun out. You can see it from across the
Yeah.
room.
Nice.
It looks like an object, while if you put it next to a trade paperback next to it, looks kind of like a joke,
Mhm. Is it?
And
is-
I get to design end papers, and I love designing end papers.
That's awesome. Are they like the taller ones that Image puts out sometimes? Is that what this?
No, we
volume
don't
is?
do the oversized. We don't do the Rick Remender oversized versions.
Okay.
But just 'cause, again, we're trying to, because very few people lead with a hardback. I think even
Right.
Rick, like he does issues and then he does paperbacks and then eventually he does an oversized hardback. That's how most normal comics people do it. We do it book market way, which is you lead with a hardback and then maybe later on you do a paperback. We haven't
no.
gotten to that. We just reprinted the hardbacks. I mean, Dracula Motherfucker's been reprinted at least once. But it works for people. Our books cross over a lot into the bookstore market.
Yeah.
They do very well in the direct market. I mean, Dracula Motherfucker was the best-selling graphic novel in shops for like 2 months in a row, which was buck wild. Like we
we didn't expect it.
It was great. But that's what you get when you make a book with the word motherfucker in the title, and manage to get
that's
Amazon's
Right.
censorship because of the little stars, cheeky little stars.
But yeah, I think
but
the oversized ones, like in a store, I think read as art books, whereas like we want this to feel like a book.
Yeah.
reminds me a lot of the current Brubaker Phillips hardcover format.
That's where I got the idea from. I completely stole it off Ed and Sean.
Okay.
They just done like Bad Weekend or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, and they literally just told us like what stock they were using and everything.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
emailed Sean and was like,
Check.
is there anything we should know about this? And he's like, yeah, it kind of washes colors out, so be bright. And we were bright. And then, since then, Image has refined it a little bit. They've also changed which printer they use.
Right.
And it's just making a really nice product. I mean, you have to get it done way in advance because it's a printer in China. The paperbacks and the issues are printed in the US for speed of turnaround. And you have to understand that the reason most comic books don't do book market very well is their first issues, and then they're a trade, and it all comes out way too fast for the collected edition comes out too fast for the book market to handle it, because the book market needs about 9 months of lead time to, you have to have it at ALA, and you have to market to librarians, and you have to have NetGalley out there, and graphic novels, collected editions of serialized comics are never out in time to capture that. Now, word of mouth might bring it back, or like a really strong book. I don't think Brian and Fiona have any problems with saga collections, but for short miniseries, it helps, I think, to just lead with a graphic novel and have it ready. We had that book done and dusted in February, and it came out just now, which is kind of where you have to be to make a dent in book market.
I wondered about that because your front and back have all of the comics Twitter likes this essentially. I went through it looking for 22 panels. We didn't make it, but I saw a half dozen of our other guests. But I remember the day that you threw that up. Anybody who wants to like this post, and that's when this book went on my radar. I went, wait a minute, Erica Henderson, Alex Campi have another book. Awesome.
Yeah, and that was like towards the end of the process too. It was like right before it went in.
But I think that was like late January, early February, something like that.
Yeah.
But let's get spoilery.
Okay.
Unless you
All
have
right.
anything else you want to say, not spoilery.
So yeah, if you haven't read the book, I'm going to count down from 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We are now entering the spoiler zone.
All
Very
right.
nice. So you made Lily a home caregiver for a grandmother that seems to have dementia, which I know well because I not only did that job, but I then turned it into a decade of running dementia units.
Whew. Yeah, my grandmother went there as well, but I was
Yeah.
I was not in charge of that job.
No, my first job in dementia was being the live-in, taking care of my grandmother. And even having the amount of support I had, which was a lot more than Lily has.
It's almost impossible to do by yourself. Like you can't
Yeah.
24-hour care give someone who's an elopement risk,
Right.
And that's why you probably saw things like the lock on the door. She put that lock
Right.
on the door so her grandma couldn't just wander off. Which doesn't make sense unless you like really know
Right.
people suffering from severe dementia and a particularly paranoid variety.
But for me, it wound up making Lily that much more sympathetic because I remember how lonely it could be for me, even though one of the first things I got the rest of my family to agree to is, look, I live here. I can't leave for the most part. So I need to be able to have people over pretty much whenever I want because I can't go out to them. So there was like a Friday night cookout at my grandma's house every Friday night when it was warm enough. And I had people come over from all over the Chicagoland area just because my friends knew that right then, if they wanted to see me, they were going to have to come to me. Also, when I had my kids, sometimes I could only manage to get them to me by having somebody else bring them because it depended on whether I could find somebody to watch my grandmother for the weekend. So I became that much more appreciative of
the world she discovered through fandom.
How she could have fallen so far into that hole.
Well, we see how isolated her living situation is. It's not like, she's not in Chicago.
No.
Which is, and like, what you were describing sucks, but at least like people were outside your door.
Yeah, no. I didn't even think it sucked. Overall, I loved it. But I felt loneliness at times. It had certain restrictions that when you add to it, the fact that she was in the middle of East Texas and didn't seem to have any other support from anybody.
And had been laid off from her job,
which of course, because
the middle of the pandemic,
even not middle of the pandemic, if you've got the number of emergencies that are going to come up when you've got, unless you literally lock grandma in for your shift every day and give her no way to get a hold of you and don't check in on her and whatnot, in which case the idea that she would live long enough, it's going to be, remember the woman in Love Actually that's always taking the calls from her brother. And that's what it would be like. It would, even when I ran units, there were certain there were certain people that we had that they call their daughter like 6 times a day because it was all they knew how to do. And they often didn't remember that they called the other 4 times.
Right.
So, where I was going with that is, did that decision come to you naturally? Did you think of what life will make Lily more sympathetic? How did you come about making Lily's life the way Lily's life was?
My mother had a stroke and has like fairly severe frontal lobe damage, which blew out her ability to have any executive function. And it functioned like a sort of dementia, but not the classic sort of dementia.
Right.
So I have gone through this entire process when I was living in Maine, taking care of my mom for many years until like for a bunch of reasons, I couldn't do it anymore. And so I wanted to, I wanted to, I kind of tend to reach for personal experiences first, and then, the experiences of my friends and acquaintances second. And I like the idea of her having to take care of, like her having no life outside of being a caregiver for this relative that, she doesn't really have a job anymore. This is the only place where she can afford to live. There's no other family helping out. And she's got this, and that's it. And her going to the convention is like this really big event for her, and her fandom friend group is a really important lifeline for her psychologically. Although, they are not necessarily pushing back on her stalker-esque tendencies enough, because they somewhat share them. And so, yeah, I just felt it was a very natural thing. And I also wanted there to be a surprise second person in the house at a certain point, because this is a very, very claustrophobic little story. I mean, I don't think a lot of people realize it because Erica handled it so well, but, a large amount of the story happens in 2 rooms. But you don't feel it, because as a constant shift of battle of power, there's constantly new things happening. But it's a ridiculously claustrophobic little story. And then to bring in the surprise outside third person, which if you read carefully enough, probably, Parasocial is a book that like really benefits from 2 or 3 reads, because you don't know to look at for stuff until you finish reading it. And then when you go back, you can look for it and it's all there. There's references to her grandmother throughout the early part of it. Getting her, stopping off to get her meds before the convention, et cetera, et cetera. But, I like the suddenly having this, expecting it to be this 2-hander, and then suddenly there being this third entity that's kind of this chaos wheel in it.
Well, Erica, I wanted to make a comment on your artwork. I really think it's still you from like Squirrel Girl stuff, but yet it's totally different as well. Did you make a conscious effort to switch up your style a little bit for this book, or?
I think it's that certain stories just call for certain things.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, I don't feel like my style has changed over time in the same sort of way. Because if you look at Danger and Other Unknown Risks, which came out earlier this year, that looks closer to how Squirrel Girl looked. Yes. Because that was the feel that was appropriate for that book. Whereas I don't think that would have been appropriate for this book or for Dracula. So I think it's more just what does this story need?
Sure. I love it. I was just saying, first of all, I love the cover for Dracula. I think that was an awesome cover. I'm looking at the it's on Bleeding Cool, so I'm sure it's
I think we fully just wanted like a 70s exploitation cover.
It's exactly right what I get from that, and I think that's just awesome. And then you look at the cover for Parasocial, and it's just, did you do the cover as well for Parasocial?
Mm-hmm.
So completely different style, and I just love the versatility you have.
Yeah, that one. The idea was those 90s Calvin Klein ads, where you just sort of had like a giant person in black and white in their underwear.
You could totally see that.
And the hands came in later, obviously, but we wanted like this. The image could just be that minus the hands.
That is true. And yeah, the red is like the really stark red over the top of that black and gray is really nice.
We wanted something that stood out on comic book shelves, because comic book covers tend to be so bright and noisy. We wanted to do something that was that, while not stark, had a lot of white space and would kind of be this little weird oasis of calm and curiosity, and hardbackness in the group of books, and kind of make you at least, and the text other than the title is light enough that it kind of makes you pick it up so you can look a little closer and read it, and that was also deliberate.
No, I haven't revisited the cover as much, and like I said, I don't have the physical one yet, but it's as we've been talking that I noticed the hands. they had just completely blown by me before, and for that matter, I just noticed the like and survive up in the top corner. Um,
That's kind of the mantra for the book, right? Yeah. Like,
it is. Um, going back to making characters sympathetic. You also you made uh, you gave us the flashback to the recent, and for him at least, sudden separation and divorce that he had with his wife, and we know him well enough that I don't think as readers we're surprised, but you clearly wrote him, and Erica, you did a great job of drawing it where he gets to his house and his wife says, you're not coming in, talk to my lawyer to get your stuff, and he seems genuinely shocked.
But you
Yeah.
also have to ask yourself, I mean, this is a book about the fictionalization of real life, both by
Right.
the way people fictionalize themselves on social media and in situations like conventions, and the way people fictionalize other real life human beings in terms of, thinking they're their precious cinnamon roll and misunderstood and blah, 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 or, they're much different than they are. And you also have to think about who is telling this story. Judging by the information that you get at the end of the
That's
book,
right.
who is
That's right.
whose story is this?
Oh.
Yeah, but it's also like it's also just as plausible that he was that closed off to his own wife that he didn't know. Like either way, it either can be true that like
And he's a
but
complete
you might
narcissist. So
Yeah.
he doesn't like, her needs kind of would have never really entered his
Right.
like purview, But yeah, I wanted to make that like that was originally a more straightforward scene, and every time I wrote it or fleshed it out, as I moved from outlines to like page breakdowns to the actual script, it got kind of messier and messier in a way, and I liked that.
Yeah, no, it really works as just this like slap in the face all of a sudden.
Well, it also makes me I'm sorry I'm going all over the place here, but it makes your
Well, I just made you realize a thing about the book, didn't I?
Yeah, it makes your soundtrack decision for that scene that much more interesting.
Oh, what was it?
The smoke and
Magnetic
mirrors.
field.
Okay.
Yeah. Because you said that you thought about Married to a Lazy Lover and decided that he wouldn't know that song, and you're totally right. And it was when I
It's
was
also
reading,
just like that's also just mean. I mean, like there's
is.
an element of mean to your own characters.
It is,
Like,
but also I have to say it was when I was reading that sentence that I stopped and sent Shelley Bond an email and said, you have to read this book and like load up the soundtrack because you're gonna love it. Haven't heard back yet, because she had cons to do. But
I love the idea of doing a soundtrack with comic book. Do you guys remember?
Yeah, I actually listened to it while I was reading today. It
Oh,
works
nice.
really well. Though I also have to say, and this is where I don't know if there's a problem with the digital, because I have like 1.5 page twice at about the spot that I was expecting I can't find the spot where it says that we should have the Echo song.
Yeah, there shouldn't be any double pages.
Yeah, it must have been a glitch in there because
that's my guess.
I did leave off by accident Slippery People in terms of why I put that on there, and that was just just such a sweet paranoid little song. But that was when I was just placing text. It ended up not being carried over to the next page because the write-ups at the end are done at the absolute last possible moment after everything else.
Then I'm guessing that I'm missing the page after the double page spread where it's all purples and blues. It's after the Lily, I Thought You'd Loved Me. Because in the digital version, it goes from that double page spread as one page to only the right side of it as a page. Does that sound like about where is the echo sound?
Ted, I can't.
No,
like,
that's fine.
You're looking at not scrolling through an iPad right now, and none of us can help.
No.
I think
that's true.
I can give you the person an image to call about this, but I don't think this is a productive use of our time.
That's a good point. But really, I just yeah, the soundtrack was amazing.
Yeah, I really love the idea of doing a soundtrack.
And I was really only asking to make certain that's around where Nocturnal Me starts, because it feels like we're roughly where Nocturnal Me should be starting.
Did you ever?
I'll figure it out when I get the hardcover, probably this week.
Yeah, I'm getting mine tomorrow when I head to the shop. Did you ever? Any of you ever read that comic book Wasteland that came out about 10, 15 years ago, maybe? It had a really cool soundtrack to that too, original score and all that kind of stuff. But
I did not. Original score?
Yeah, it was like they had a guy come in, and I don't know the whole thing behind it, but I'll have to dig it up. But yeah, the comic book was called Wasteland.
Up right now, I don't know this one either. Chris Cantwell got okay.
Anyway, so how do you guys work together? I mean, are your scripts pretty detailed, Alex, that you send over to Erica, or
we sort of covered all this beforehropbeforehand? So
did we? Okay, yeah. Sorry about
that. Do this.
Okay, you know where my questioning always goes. Sounds
they have
good.
a Dropbox.
Sounds good.
They go back and forth a lot.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I always like to hear artists' impressions when they get the script. When you got the script, Erica, what was your first impression? What excited you? What did you wonder about?
I think. I mean, I don't think well, the funny thing to me was that this script was going to go to someone else first. And so there were all these little notes in there.
You were busy. You were doing
No. I'm not, it's not a judgment. I'm just saying the thing that I thought the thing I remember reacting to, I thought it was very funny because it was for someone else. There were all these notes about what conventions are like and all these things that like Alex was trying to describe. Like if you were sending it to me directly, like if you had written it, it was like, this is for Erica and I'm sending it right to her. Like there were all these little notes for things that you probably wouldn't have described. So like there's a section where you described what like Clamp was, like 90s shoujo manga. And I was like, it was just very funny, all this stuff. I was like, yes, I know. So yeah, I think Alex can get descriptive, but also it depends on who she's sending it to. But yeah,
I try not to make people like artists have better use of their time than Googling things. So when in doubt, I do the Googling. Also, because I often tend to build up locations in my head. So yeah, I tend to my scripts tend to have a bunch of links in them to things, and Erica happily ignores most of them because she knows what I'm talking about anyway.
Well, but some of them are useful. Like if it's a certain intersection in Texas, like, yes, please show me what that intersection looks like. But no, I think since we had already done Dracula together and this was going to go about the same way, I had read it and I was like, yeah, I'm on board. I knew what you were doing. I like the idea of doing after this very bombastic book that jumped from place to place, basically like for a while. It's a period where like every 2 pages were a new location in Dracula, in a new crazy setting. And here we're literally in 2 locations. Mm-hmm. There's the convention, there's East Texas. Mm-hmm. And to have this like much quieter story that slowly builds, and it's focused more on emotion rather than like, we're here, now we're doing this. Which was also based on emotion, but like the emotion was more either heightened or underneath the bombast. And so it was fun to like flip that whole thing and just do this like weird little 2-person play.
It was concise, and it's really, I don't know. It was a breath of fresh air after reading Dracula Motherfucker to reading this. Not that there was anything wrong with the bombastic stuff, but it just was nice to have like completely different change of pace.
Well, I like doing different things.
Yep.
And
yeah, if we've already written that book, why write it again?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
Tyler's word choice there, breath of fresh air. I don't think that's how I describe Parasocial. I love it, but it's more in a cringe and be scared and please hope I don't actually know these people, because I know people who are kind of like these people. Sort of way.
I didn't find it cringy. I love suspension horror and all that kind of stuff. So this was just a fun take on it. You know what I mean? But anywho.
But I'm not as much of the horror guy. So
I know. Yeah.
This is a place where Tyler and I tend to be very different.
Yeah.
Horror. Yay. And
I'm on board.
This is
Tad
so
cringes.
good. What's next on the horizon?
You want to go first, Alex?
Sure. I mean, other than very slowly kind of thinking about doing another book with Erica. So we were gonna do a one particular book, and then my head went somewhere else, and we're still gonna potentially do Poisoner's Apprentice someday when I get my shit. Most of these things depend on getting my shit together. But like we're gonna possibly do Intruder first, because that's where I'm feeling things right now. It's werewolves and generational trauma. I'm also slowly doing a kids book with Carla Speed McNeil, which will be out in like 2026. Like we're just making it so slowly. It's just not really, it'll be done when it's good and ready. Tom Fowler and I are doing a medieval heist book, which again, like a lot of my life has been held up by Scrapper, which is the other book I have. I have 2 other books out right now. Bad Karma, which is the collection of my Panel Syndicate sort of action, black comedy, Die Hard, Lethal Weapon type book, comes out in 312-page hardback on November 1st. And then I've got Scrapper, which is a 6-issue monthly book, where we're just tying up the 6th issue now. Issue 4 is out tomorrow, or I guess yesterday or last week, whenever this actually goes out. But yeah, it's out whatever tomorrow's date is, the 18th of October. I haven't done a monthly book in a really long time, and because I do all of the editing and production and lettering and graphic design, it's really been killing me, because also our colorist had a whole bunch of things going on in their life, and like they've been super late on everything through reasons that they could not control. And that just means I have to letter an entire book over a weekend, and so I have no writing time. Like I have my day job, and I have my writing, and I have the monthly book, and it ends this weekend, and I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, Scrapper is just one of those books that's just, I love it. It's been really so fun. And I'm not an animal book person. Because Tony Fleeks had a dog book recently that I just didn't really enjoy it. And so when Tag goes, you got to read Scrapper, it's awesome, and it's been good. I can't wait to see how it finishes up.
So I've done very little writing, and I don't think I'm ever going to do a monthly book again. I just
okay,
it's too much for me. I can't do it around everything else. But yeah, I'm writing this book for Tom. It's a medieval heist book that I'm really looking forward to. Book with Erica. I have a sort of high fantasy sort of horror book that I guess I will write someday when I have more spare time. Like,
sure.
there's a whole bunch of things. Like I've got a whole line of projects in my head that I really just the only thing that's missing is time to write them.
Yeah.
They're all creator owned. I'm just not doing work for hire again.
No, I wouldn't either if I was in your position. It's so much more fun to do creator owned books, you know. Erica, what do you have coming up on the horizon?
I'm currently working on a graphic novel with Z Chun over at TKO. That's it's early stages. I mean, it's like a 7-chapter thing, and I'm penciling chapter 1 right now, so it's a little ways off.
It's coming.
Yeah, it's coming. And I'm writing and drawing a 40-page special, but it's not announced at all. So I'm just gonna say that much. I'm not even gonna say who it's for, because it's very much not announced.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's more than enough to keep me busy.
That's awesome.
You know, a graphic novel and a 40-page story. So
that's enough.
Yeah.
Well, it's been awesome having you guys on. Tad, I know you're having internet troubles. Can you hear me right now?
I can again. I think our recording was good all the way through, because there was no indication that all of you were having trouble hearing each other.
No.
Yeah, we were all fine.
Yeah,
my ability to hear things has been weird for a while.
All right.
So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah. Did you guys, Tad, did you have any other questions for Alex or Erica before we wrap things up, or? He must.
Just that I love all your work, and Scrapper has been amazing, Alex. You were just starting to talk about it, and that's when I got dumped entirely from the internet, as I was trying to say, I love that book.
Yeah, that book is great.
So keep up the great work. You're welcome back anytime. We're not a big megaphone, but we do like talking to you.
Hey guys, this is Tyler from 22 Panels. I'm here to tell you all about our Patreon. If you enjoy this show, please consider donating to our Patreon to keep this show going. We have many different tiers, all different levels, to help you decide what's right for you. Okay, so get on out there to patreon.com/22 Panels Podcast.